What's up, everyone? I'm the ADHD-doer here with you, and this interview, we're going to interview Courtney, who is a lawyer and who is passionate about acting and is actually starting to act. So, Courtney, welcome to our channel or our podcast, and I'm really happy to have you here. Can you talk a little bit about yourself, brag if you can, and talk about what you do, etc.?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to be here chatting with you. I'm glad we were able to get this together. You're right. I am a lawyer. I live in the United States. I currently practicing law, and I also do act as a hobby in my spare time. So I was diagnosed with ADHD later in life. Actually, it was just about 4 years ago. So I went through my childhood, most of my early adult life, and didn't know that I had ADHD, and went to law school, everything. And so it's really been an education for myself to learn the last couple of years that I had ADHD. I feel like it's answered so many questions, and it's really, I've had a lot of light bulb aha moments as I've kind of gone back and thought about, things in my life and wondered why things happened the way they did. And it makes a lot of sense with ADD. So yeah, I work as an attorney. I was a prosecutor for about 5 years, and now I work in e-discovery law for a firm here in North Carolina. And it's been a journey. I feel like I really enjoy what I do now. It's taken me a little while to find an exact part of the law that I really enjoy, but I really do love it. And it also just keeps me balanced, I think, to have acting. I've always loved to act ever since I was little. Used to dress up as, Wonder Woman and different characters, and always loved getting the costumes just right. So it's something that I allowed myself to kind of started doing again. I was in plays in high school, and I just started picking it back up maybe about 6 or so years ago. And so I'm really glad that I did, because it makes me feel more balanced.
So you went through law school, by the way, without knowing you had ADHD. You just
That's right.
did it. You're a champ.
Mm-hmm.
You're a champ.
It was tough. It was tough. Yeah, it was really tough.
How did you pull it off?
I think I'm just an extremely hard worker, which I think a lot of us with ADHD are. I think that sometimes we don't even understand a word no, or that we can't. So we just keep going. And so I think it was really that's probably what got me through most of my life. I just refused to give up. And I mean, it was hard. A lot of times I just didn't, other people seemed to know how to study. I couldn't figure it out. I would try to talk to people, try to find the best way to study, but it wasn't intuitive for me. I just really had to just throw, my heart and soul into it. And I didn't have much of a life when I was in law school, because I was just trying to study and figure out how to study. So it was difficult. Now it all makes sense, really, knowing that I had ADD. Yeah, because I had no idea, and just thought, oh, I guess, must not be able to get it. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I shouldn't be a lawyer. So, yeah, it was difficult.
So what about acting? So are you planning on making it also a career, or just a hobby, basically?
I think it's one of those things. Yeah, it's hard to, to say, I think, exactly kind of what'll come from it. I'm a little bit limited with the time I can invest in it with work. I love it and I enjoy it. And to me, if it never became a formal career, I'd be fine with that, because I just enjoy it. It's just, it gives me, it's a good, it's almost kind of a therapeutic kind of thing. I think to be able to be other people and to get into parts and things like that. Sometimes I've learned a lot about myself, I think, from trying to play other characters, because a lot of times, you have to be truthful in that moment. And, it's been a great hobby for me to have. And I just kind of enjoy, being in front of people and sharing my story, whether it's acting or doing a commercial or something like that. So I just enjoy it.
And do you feel the effects of ADHD when you're acting, or you're in the flow, you don't need any medication, you're just doing it, and you feel like your brain is good at it?
I feel like a lot more like it. I don't need the medication, that I just sort of get into the flow of it. sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
think, though, that part of ADHD that makes our brain go so fast and we start kind of getting in our head, that kind of messes with me a little bit. But I definitely feel like it's more of kind of just a natural, you just kind of go with your instincts. And it's actually better as an actor. You know, with ADHD, a lot of times we just say what, without really thinking, without a filter. And actually, that's the best way you can be as an actor, is to just, like, from the heart, just, react, whether it's saying something or just your emotion, your face, all of that kind of stuff. So from that standpoint, it's easier.
Yeah,
That's
because there
another
are a lot
thing.
of pretty successful actors with ADHD, I guess. I don't know the
Yeah.
names, but I've read a blog about it or something like that. It was a full list.
Yeah, there are a lot of performers and actors with
They're
ADHD, I
they're
think.
praising it, like they say it's a great thing to have as actors. So yeah, I think it's a great thing. I do
Yeah.
believe that. So when you were diagnosed, you said 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When you were diagnosed with ADHD, how were the news? You were shocked. You were uh, finally relieved. You were happy with it. What happened? Explain the whole process.
Sure. I mean, I was really relieved. I was actually really glad, because I felt like, and I think this happens with a lot of people,
Me too.
something seemed wrong. I thought it was anxiety, and I went and started talking to somebody about anxiety, and that just didn't really seem to fit right. And they gave me some medication, and it just made me really tired. And I was like, this just doesn't seem right. And so I had a friend of mine suggest ADHD to me, which was kind of controversial because I think she was afraid she might upset me. And so she kind of suggested that maybe that might be what I had. And I actually read one of Dr. Hallowell's books, the
Mm-hmm.
Driven to Distraction book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I listened to it on audio, and I actually started crying when I listened to it, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's me. And I had never thought ADHD, because I always thought the stereotype of, like, the little boys, loud, running around, can't control them. And I was never that person. I mean, I was always pretty well behaved, quiet, really more the inattentive kind of type of ADHD. And
Mm-hmm.
so it felt like a long time coming. So, like I said, I went, kind of got treated for anxiety, didn't work. And I really struggled to find a doctor. So I went straight to an ADHD doctor, and did the tests, and it came back pretty conclusive. And it just felt like a relief to know that there was sort of an explanation, and then I could really research ADHD, try to understand how it applied to me. And it just was, it was the beginning. It didn't solve my problems, because, as we know, with ADHD, a lot of times there's a lot of behavioral stuff that we have to work on. But,
Mm-hmm.
medication doesn't solve everything. But it was a really great feeling to have at least an answer and understand myself a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I did know, I was so happy. I was like, this
Hmm.
is because something is off. And you tell, when I knew I was 17, so I was telling my parents, and I was like, something is wrong with me. And they're like, it's just maybe psychological. It's just maybe this. Maybe it's because you have this or you do this, etc. You're just not focused enough. And they just tell you things like this. But then you discover something that looks exactly like you, kind of like
Hmm.
describes you. You're just so happy. But then I fell into this trap in which I started kind of giving excuses for myself to be lazy and to not do things. And
Right.
for a while I was making it worse for myself. And then I just read, I remember a blog saying it's the entrepreneur's superpower. And then it just all changed. I started relying on myself, but then it snowballed into greater and greater things. I stopped giving excuses, and I started becoming more solution oriented. But anyway, that's what
Yeah.
happened to me.
No, I mean, you're a real go-getter. I'm very impressed by everything that you do. So I think you've definitely found yourself and found your niche.
Yeah, thank you. So who was Courtney exactly, like, as a teenager? uh, what were you like? How was your ADHD expressing itself?
I think I was pretty quiet. Like I said, I think I was a daydreamer. I definitely was not sort of obnoxious, loud, trying to get attention, that kind of thing. I think I felt like I was different, but I didn't know why. I didn't know, kind of what it was exactly. And I just felt like I had, like, my thoughts were different than other people I went to school with, and I thought about things differently. I was always kind of an out of the box thinker. So I didn't fit into a very, like, square little mold. I just felt like I was just had a lot of open ideas, and, struggled a little bit socially. And I think also something that's been hard for me is the sort of impulsiveness in terms of talking, like I was talking about. Like, I would, say things that, were, maybe appropriate, but inappropriate. Like, I would say something that would really, kind of match what was happening in a situation, but it would be slightly inappropriate. And people would kind of look at me like, why did you just say that? Or that hurt somebody's feelings, or, so then I kind of got self-conscious. And so I think that all kind of, I felt like it started to kind of stifle my personality, because I sort of felt like that, if I said things inappropriate, well, I guess I just need to stop, saying things until I really think about them. And I think for girls, there's a lot of social pressure to fit in and stuff like that. I mean, I know there is for guys and girls, but I think I did start to kind of maybe almost sort of repress my personality a little bit, because I thought maybe it wasn't appropriate.
Yeah. But what I wanted to, when you said, for example, I mean, when you said it stifled your personality, I guess it's also a good thing, because you become self-aware when you become a little bit self-conscious. You start really learning more about yourself. And I guess that's one thing that is great for people who have ADHD. I think it's a great thing to develop, even though it comes with a price at the beginning, because it can ruin a lot of things in your life, but it's a price to pay. And what I'm noticing now in the group is that a lot of the people who are in the group, like most of them, they are all like self-aware. And whenever we talk about a topic, they can talk about it, and they can really develop some really deep ideas. And we don't see this often.
No, I mean, and I definitely don't want to put a totally negative spin on it. It's been a journey, but honestly, I think it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I mean, I feel like now I really am who I am. I appreciate who I am. I understand who I am. I know my limitations. And I think that some of those early struggles made me really humble and empathetic, so that now I can understand other people. I mean, I'm a big, champion for mental health awareness and no stigma, because I think it affects so many people that people aren't even willing to admit. But I mean, honestly, like, I think the way my life played out was exactly how it was supposed to play out. And I really want to, give a message to people out there that maybe are trying to figure out if they have ADHD or just diagnosed, that it really can be a blessing. And even though you might have had struggles, you can really, knowledge is power, and make the most out of, the circumstances. And I mean, I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change having ADHD. I think it makes me unique. I think it makes me special. I think it gives me superpowers that other people don't have. And I think, I really, I mean, I feel great about this community too. I think everybody's been very welcoming and warm in the community.
Yeah. So my next question was, so you weren't actually good at school before, or were you just a hard worker and you were good, or hard worker but you're not seeing exactly the results you were hoping for, or compared to the others, you were just below, or maybe just in the middle, below average or just average? How were you exactly? How was it affecting you?
I did well when I was in, like, elementary and high school, because I felt like that in those schools, and I went to a private school initially, they really told you, like, okay, if you want to get an A in this class, read the chapter, do the questions at the end, and then study and, memorize this, and you'll do well. And so I was really good when somebody gave me that structure. But when I went to law school, it wasn't like that. And it's definitely not about memorization. You really have to understand the strategy of it. And that was hard for me, because if somebody said, do X, Y, and Z and you'll get an A, I could do it. But when I had to figure it out on my own, it was really difficult. And so I actually did do pretty well. And I think that's why when I told my father that I had ADHD and was diagnosed, he didn't believe it. He thought I was just over analyzing myself, because he was like, you did well, you weren't a problem child. And, so he didn't believe it. But when I got in the real world, so law school was difficult. And then when I started getting jobs, it was difficult, because nobody tells you exactly what to do. You have to kind of figure it out.
Yeah. So, was like, because I know it required a lot of studies basically to become a lawyer. Tell us, because some people who are watching, they could be like students right now and they have ADHD, and becoming a lawyer is one of the hardest things to study, What
Right.
was your methodology basically for studying?
I would try to find people that I felt like had similar study styles to me. At least that I could kind of ask questions and we could kind of figure it out together. I kind of did a mix of studying with people and by myself. I know that when I taking the bar exam, which is the exam you have to take to be able to practice law, that was difficult. I didn't pass the first time. And I know that what ended up working for me is that this is kind of like the overall kind of answer in a way. Sometimes, people will tell you, like, here's how you can be successful as a law student. And they would sort of say, like, tell you to study X number of hours, do an outline, do this. And I found that I couldn't do it exactly like they said, because sometimes that wasn't enough. Like, I had to study more than kind of like the prescribed, kind of instructions. And so I found that when I passed the bar, what I did was I just focused on exactly like the stuff I knew I didn't even worry about. So I went and just spent all my time focusing on the stuff I didn't understand. And I think nobody really ever told me to kind of do it that way. And I wish that I had done that maybe more in law school. I might have done better. But, I just found, just putting all my effort into stuff that I didn't know that well really helped me to succeed, especially with the bar exam.
So that was your style of studying, basically. Focus on, you were just forgetting about what you knew and just put in your head and all your energy on the things you just couldn't comprehend. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out, because I kind of, they would just tell you to like study everything. And so when I did that, though, I realized that I was missing out, like that really the stuff I didn't understand, that by spending most of my time on that helped me, kind of get across the goal line. Because I guess if you're studying stuff you already know, you're kind of looking at it, you're like, yeah, I know that or whatever. And it's easier to study because you know it, but you might as well just spend your time on the stuff that you don't understand. Because then when you come to the test and they ask you a question about something, that you didn't understand, you'll be able to answer it. And the stuff that you already knew, I mean, if you know it, there were some things that like, I knew okay, some things I knew really well. And so I'd, spend time, even the stuff that I knew okay, but not really well, I would spend time on that. The stuff I didn't know, I spent a lot of time on that.
And was there a difference between when you practiced and when you studied? And were a lot of things like when you started working, you were like, oh, now it makes sense. And
yeah.
Now, so if you went back to school with the knowledge you have now, do you think it's going to be really easy to do it, or?
I think it would still be hard because there's some of that stuff that I don't do in my daily practice. You learn like property and, criminal, civil, all different types of law. And the one thing that was the hardest was civil procedure. And that was a lot of rules. And it just didn't make sense to me because I'd never worked in a law office. It's just about kind of like, okay, you have to file your, complaint this date, and then you have 23 days or, whatever. And that just didn't make sense to me because I'd never done it. criminal law, because, we all watch TV shows and things like that, like Law and Order, about criminal law, that made a lot of sense. So some of it, like civil procedure, I think I would do pretty well going back because I have worked in it and now it makes sense to me. But some other ones probably still would be difficult to go back to. Yeah. So it's hard because, I don't know. Sometimes school doesn't prepare you for everything. And, sometimes it's, not all the practical stuff that you need to be a lawyer.
Yeah. So how about when you started working? What was exactly hard in your day-to-day activities, and how did ADHD affect it, and how did you overcome it?
Sure. I found that managing like a lot of files, if you had like 50 case files when I was a prosecutor, and they were all at various stages, and you had to like just keep track of like 50 files at a time. That was very hard for me because I didn't, I just, with ADHD, we're not good at schedules and, like staying on top of things. So they would just sort of start to pile up. And then I would get embarrassed and I'd be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to catch up on this? And so I was working all the time to try to catch up. And so that kind of just managing myself, that, I really had to learn how to do that. The other thing, and I don't know if this affects you, is, being a courtroom lawyer, I don't, a lot of times, like the way I think and listen and process information, sometimes I have a hard time saying what I'm thinking in my head, or if somebody says something and I want to counter that argument, it's hard for me to do that all like in the same moment, kind of right in front of a courtroom. And I had a hard time, like I felt like I needed time to sort of like think about their argument, write it down, and then figure out what I wanted to say. So I found, I don't know, I just felt like my oral arguments sometimes just didn't come out in a good flow, because it's just, I think that's something that's hard for, I think it's that, pausing and taking information, holding it in your head, and then being able to use it. I think it's that whole executive function. And I never thought about that being an issue.
It is definitely hard for me too, because I try to make videos. I try to plan a lot of things. I try to give feedback to people who are working with me. I do interviews, and it's with my third language all the time, which is English.
Right.
So it's really hard. It's most of the time my ideas are like really wide, and I don't want to take a lot of time explaining them too, because I'm like, I gotta tell it fast, and it just comes out like this. Basically.
Yeah, I know. I'm so impressed that you do this in English, which isn't your first language.
Yeah, thank you. But that's what happens most of the time. It's really hard. And this makes it even harder once, for example, a video is up, because now I'm overly critical about what I do. So I watch it and I'm like, this is not what I had in mind. That's not all the things I had in mind. Right. And yeah, I feel like I can do better. And this creates also like this syndrome, how do we call it? Imposter syndrome too.
Right.
Because now I feel like I'm not good enough, because I could have done better, but now I see that it's this disparity between my ideas and what I've created. So it's awful. But you know what, Kourtney? You, from all of the guests, I mean, I respect you a lot. Why? Because I mean, being a lawyer, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
But for all of the people who came, they're entrepreneurs, and it's exactly like the things. For example, when I ask them questions about entrepreneurship and everything, it's hard to be an entrepreneur, etc. But the brain of ADHD makes it easier to become an entrepreneur. Basically, there are not a lot of processes. It's just more about creativity, etc. More like when you act. So to be able to deal with all of this, Kourtney, I respect you for that.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I really respect you, being able to do all that you do.
Yeah, oh thank you. We're still in the infancy stage and still testing a lot of things. We still haven't done much, but Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So would you recommend doing what you do to other people who have ADHD?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. I mean, I would, especially if you have a passion for law and helping people, which I do. I mean, I have a passion for helping people. I don't really have individual clients anymore because I work for a corporate big law firm. But I enjoy solving problems, researching,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if it's something I enjoy researching it. But I would say that you have to really want to do it because it's so difficult that, if you're not willing to stick with it, and you get law school debt, education loans and all that kind of stuff. If you don't really have an interest in it, I think it would be difficult for somebody to do. I don't think you could just be like, oh, law school, that sounds interesting or fun. I think you'd really have to want to do it and be passionate about it. And so with that said, I'd recommend it, but it's not for everybody, and not, if you don't really have an interest in it.
Yeah, so you better dodge if you're not a diehard fan of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And were you a diehard fan, by the way, like honestly, of the law before you started?
I I thought I was, because I enjoy helping people. I probably maybe should have gone in something more. I mean, I don't know if it would have been social work or something like that, but law isn't just about helping people. It's about, you have to understand all the laws and be able to be
Mm-hmm.
strategic. And I find that having ADHD, I'm probably not, it's hard. The strategy part of it is difficult until you kind of do it again and again. So, I do love the law. I'm all about justice. I'm a rule follower, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I do have a passion for it. But if I had to do it again, I don't know. It was pretty difficult. So I don't know if I'd have the stamina to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for your honesty about this. A lot of
yeah.
people don't dare to just say what's there, what's like the exact truth. So thank you for it.
You're welcome.
Um, so how about your passion for acting? I talked about you in a previous interview, and he told me
Oh,
the person that I was interviewing told me to say bravo to you
oh, thanks.
because
Thank you.
of wanting, because you told me you wanted also you get some jobs with commercials, etc. So how about acting? How on earth did you, for example, decide you could do, besides being a lawyer, on top of it, act? Is it like just the passion, the ADHD mind wanting to do this and that, and or how did you put it off too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is kind of the ADHD mind, wanting to just jump, oh, that sounds great. Let me try that, kind of thing. Honestly, in some ways, sometimes bad experiences can turn into something good. I really got burned out at work when I was a prosecutor doing jury trials and going to court. It was just very intense. And for the, issues that I talked about with the working memory and the executive function, being able to, give closing arguments and listen to, testimony and then turn around and make an argument about it. I really got burned out, and I just decided, I was like, I'm going to have a better work-life balance. And acting is something that I've always enjoyed, always had a passion for. And so I ended up leaving my job as a prosecutor to work, not in the courtroom. And I started taking acting classes, and it just, taking classes was what kind of helped. I didn't just start acting, right away. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to, kind of learn the craft and all that. So I just started taking classes, and then it just kind of, grew from there. And I really enjoyed it, wanted to learn, get better. And then I ultimately got an agent, and started auditioning for things. And it really came out of just, kind of being frustrated with the way things were and wanting to enjoy my life more and wanting to just to do something that I had a lot of passion for. So, and it's one of those things like acting, a lot of people will say like, oh, you either have it or you don't. And I find that with a lot of things, acting, whether it's being a good lawyer, a lot of times if you're willing to persist and persevere, and you really enjoy it, you may not be a wonderful actress the first thing you do. I mean, I felt like I was probably pretty terrible the first couple things I did in acting class,
Yeah.
but I've learned, I'm really interested in it, and I've just really tried to find ways to improve, and I just keep doing it, and I've noticed a big improvement, and so it's been great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, people who say that have a fixed mindset and they gotta revise it for a while. They gotta go back and get inside their head and kind of see if they could change something, because nothing is really about this. Like you either have it or not. Because I mean, for example, when I saw the other day a video I made on my phone, and I was explaining something. It was really awful. My voice was shaky, and to be honest, I don't even know. There is a big difference, and I don't even know how I got from point A to point B. And now it's also even affecting, for example, when I'm doing a presentation or something like this. I feel like I'm really good, or for example, I'm in a class or something, and other people are doing those presentations. I feel like I have an edge just because of what I do here. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
yeah, you can develop your spontaneity, or whatever we call it, and you can develop a lot of the things you feel like you can't do.
Yeah.
Would you, if you if your acting career skyrocketed, you know the question, yeah, right? So if your career skyrocketed, would you drop being a lawyer, or would you want to keep working a bit, or how would you structure your life?
I
What
think,
would you
I mean,
do?
I think it, yeah, I think it would kind of depend on what happened. I mean, a lot of times with acting, some people, they get one role and, they get 15 minutes of fame, and then, they kind of fade away. So it's hard to know, it's always kind of hard to know, like, is this going to last forever? But, I mean, I think I would go with it if it seemed right and I was really enjoying it. I would probably just give it a shot. Um, but if I did it and didn't love it, maybe I thought it would be great and then got into it and didn't really like it and it wasn't fulfilling me. I would be glad to have law to kind of, I don't want to say fall back on, but I really enjoy what I do as a lawyer, and if I could do both, I would do it, and I definitely wouldn't ever want to just completely walk away from it. Feel like I work too hard, to pass the bar and all that kind of stuff to just walk away from it. But, I mean, I would probably go with whatever seemed right in the moment. I'm not, I think having ADHD, I'm not a super planning, person. I'm not like, oh, okay, at age, 30, I want to do this, 40, 50, I'm willing to kind of just go with what feels right in the moment. So I think hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I'm really dreamy, and I'm like thinking about the future all of the time. I'm
Right.
always in the future. I'm always
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Same,
but
same here.
it's wide. It's abstract. It's not very concrete. So for as you said, for example, at 30, I'm gonna be this and that. I'm like around this and this. I want to have something like this and that. And
Hmm.
but it's what keeps me going towards a goal, in a trajectory. It's not like I don't plan, but it's a wide planning, and I enjoy
Right.
it. I've been doing this all of my life since I was a kid. I was like sleeping and in my bed and dreaming about the team I'm going to create in the video game, for example. So, for example, a high
Yeah.
level team. It
Uh-huh.
was so crazy, and I was planning for my sister and my little brother in which characters they're going to play, and I was telling them, you're gonna do this and that. So it's I guess that's how that's how it was for me, having ADHD. So
Yeah.
uh,
I've been a lot the same way.
really,
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been, like I said, I was kind of a daydreamer, always fantasizing about, like, I could envision myself. I mean, I don't have a problem envisioning myself being an actress or what that would be like. And, and I definitely let myself kind of fantasize about that kind of stuff sometimes,
You
but
should. You should.
well, thank you.
It's a therapy. It's a therapy too.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure you feel it when you're daydreaming. How do you feel?
Great. I mean, I don't know. I find that daydreams have really helped me with life. And I don't know. I can't imagine being somebody that doesn't daydream, that's just always 100% practical. Like, well, I am in this moment. Here's where I am. I'm not going to think about what could be or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really helpful. And
Yeah.
I think you kind of need that. I mean, sometimes you just need to dream. It's not just about what's happening right in this moment. I mean, it is somewhat, but you've got to be able to, to think beyond that and think about what's possible.
Yes. I 100% agree with this. Um, you were in a Vivance video you showed me. A commercial or just a video? Was it just a testimonial or commercial?
It was kind of just a testimonial. I got it. It was through an organization here in the United States on ADD, and it was to tell your story. It was people that actually took Vyvanse, and I went to New York and filmed it. And there were about 6 of us there that were doing the same thing. Everybody took Vyvanse, and it was people of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, diverse backgrounds. And so it was telling our story. And I worked with the people, and they kind of, I told them, my thoughts and my story, and they kind of, wrote some things, for me to say. Some of it I just said, just off the cuff. So, but it was a good experience.
How did it help you though? How did medication help you specifically with your day-to-day tasks, basically?
It's just helped me. I mean, I don't want to say just focus, but it gives you energy to kind of be able to attack the day. I would get very overwhelmed, because in law there's, it's difficult, and I would get overwhelmed, or if I had a lot to do, I just would be scattered and like, oh, I don't even know what to do first, and so I think it helps me, just I'm able to kind of just put blinders on and just go and do a little bit more. Now, I still have had to work on skills, like organizational skills, writing things down, things like that, to be able to, finish projects and stuff like that. But it just kind of gives me it kind of makes me feel like I'm more in an even playing field. Like I can attack and do what I need to do. Just have the energy, have the focus to do it more.
I was going to ask you a question. It was written, but I think you've already answered it, right? About acting. So when you take medication, do you take it to act too, or usually you don't? You just, when you act, you want to be all yourself?
I still take medication. I don't know. I just find that it, I like the feeling of the focus. And so I'm not one of those people that takes it and doesn't take it. I take it regularly, just because I find that just, if I'm just doing stuff in normal life, it helps me be, just feel more organized. So I take it regardless. I hadn't thought about that. I did kind of worry about that a little bit with acting. Like, would it change my personality, to not be myself? But in some ways, I think it kind of just helps me from getting in my head too much, which is bad for acting. In some ways, I think it even helps probably with that. So I still take it.
Yeah. I mean, this worrying thing is, I don't know if it's an acquired thing because of how we grow up with ADHD and this period in which we don't know we have it. I don't know if it's something we acquire, if it's just something typical in our brain, like worrying about, is it gonna affect me? Is it not gonna affect me? Well, is it how is it gonna feel to me? I don't know. I worry a lot, and it's creating a lot of anxiety. But I'm doing some sort of things to get rid of this anxiety, though. Like this meditation, it helped me a lot, a lot. Do you meditate?
Good. Yeah. I do. I've just recently gotten into that, maybe like the last year or two. I find that it helps
That's not
and
even
deep
recently.
breathing.
That's more than 90% of people who meditate.
Right, right. No, because I mean, and I don't know, maybe it is just, I think our brains are just always active, and maybe that's why, we do worry and stuff. And I find that I forget, sometimes I forget to breathe. I mean, so I find all that stuff really helpful. I kind of thought it was a joke initially, people were talking about meditating and mindfulness and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's really helped me a lot. I mean, just remember to breathe, remember to pause, stop. I mean, yeah, I should do it more than I do, but it's great.
And what's great about it is that you don't feel the effects until you do it consistently for a while. And then you start feeling like you've really acquired something you've never believed was possible in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's great
Yeah.
about it. And the more you do it, the easier it is for you to become consistent with it and consistent with
Mm-hmm.
other things too. Uh, are you
Absolutely.
are you consistent with it with meditation or?
Um, I'm sometimes bad if I get busy sometimes, and that's probably when I should do it the most. Sometimes I will be like, oh, I don't have time to meditate. And then sometimes I just start doing it because I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain, I'm just so frazzled. I need to do this. It's important. So I do find that it's easier the more I do it, because sometimes you're like, oh, it's something else to do, kind of like exercise. But I find it just really great. Even if I just take 5 minutes or 2 minutes just to breathe deeply and just take a moment, I try to do that because I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. So what would you tell other people who have ADHD right now and are struggling with it and think it's a curse? Because we know most people, especially when you just realize you have it, you
Mm-hmm.
start thinking it's a curse because most of the knowledge out there, the first thing you see when you research it is the bad things. You focus on the bad
Mm-hmm.
things, and you
Right.
really, so if you don't get exposed to another knowledge that would say otherwise, you're stuck with it and you start developing this mindset that it's really a curse and it's gonna ruin the rest of your life. And we know that our thinking and our thoughts are what creates our reality, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how perspective works. So what would you tell those people?
I think you have to, forgive yourself. You can't focus on, because it's hard, because I think society wants us to be neurotypical, because everything is about, like,
Yes,
be on
exactly. Yeah,
time, be a good friend, remember things, be organized, have a, spotless home, all that stuff. And so it's so hard because I feel like the world is makes you think that's how you have to be. But I think you have to look at yourself and think about the things that maybe that do make you different, and how that is a wonderful thing. I mean, because I think God created, I mean, not to get too religious or anything, but I mean, I think whether you believe in God or whatever, I think we were all, we are these unique individuals for a reason. And I think the world wouldn't be the same place if we were all
the same.
identical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if
So,
you were the
yeah.
same, it would be too boring.
Yeah, yeah, it would be like a movie, like some utopian society, very boring.
Yeah, if people who didn't have ADHD, who have ADHD, didn't exist, it would also be boring, I guess. A lot of
I think so
a lot
too.
of a lot of the things that got invented are like, we can credit ADHD-doers for it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So is that the only message, or do you have something to add for it?
I think, just don't, I mean, I don't know. I think don't feel like you have to be what society says you have to be. I think do what you enjoy. Because I think if you do what you enjoy, you'll have a passion for it, and you'll be happy. I mean, I don't think you need to, if you have a job, quit your job and, say, well, if I love playing video games, I'm just going to play video games all the time. But I mean, I think you can do things as hobbies, kind of like how I do with acting and things like that. I just think you just need to just, live your life do the things that feel right for you, that you enjoy, that you feel good at. And I think that if you focus, if you spend energy doing things that you're good at and that you enjoy, it won't seem so overwhelming, and it won't seem like there are so many negatives. So yeah, probably that.
Yeah, kind of get out of the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Think for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
I lost you.
Oh, wait, let's see. Okay, sorry about that.
So that's about it, basically. I just want to add this one question, because you're very active on Instagram. I see you're sharing things.
Mm-hmm.
What is your purpose from it? Is it do you want to share a message with people from it, or do you love it? Do you just do it because you enjoy it, or?
I think, I don't, it's tough. I mean, I think with my ADHD brain, sometimes I'm all over the place. And so, I know, a lot of times they say you have to have like a real unique focus kind of on Instagram or social media. I mean, and I really don't, but I would like to help people. And it's one of the reasons why I did the Vyvanse, commercial story. I mean, I am so passionate about the ADHD community and wanting to help people, and to really help people realize that it's not a terrible thing, and that you can be successful with it. And I mean, I don't, desire, I'm not looking, for like a quick money, or anything like that. I really enjoy, I mean, it would just bring me so much joy if my story could help other people. So I really would just like to share kind of my story and all that.
Because you do share some exciting stuff. So I was wondering, is there like a master plan, or it's you're furnishing a lot of work on it. Me on Instagram, I just suck.
Oh no!
I just suck when I have to do the
amazing
work.
Facebook group. You've got the amazing Facebook group.
Yeah. So Kourtney, I really, really, really want to thank you for joining. I enjoyed this so much.
Me too.
If someone wants to find you, where can they find you? Where would you be the most available? Is it on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram, and I'm just under my name. It's Courtney Duncil. My last name's spelled Duncil, and so it's just Courtney Duncil all together. First name spelled Courtney. Courtney Duncil. I'm there. I'm on Twitter, not as active, and I do have a Facebook page too, but that's pretty small. I think Instagram's probably the best place to get in touch with me.
Yeah, well, I'll just link it in the video. But Kourtney, really, thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
This has been great. I wish you didn't live so far away that I could meet you in person. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. So I guess you have a great day, and I should have a great night.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this interview is going to be over. Guys, take notes. Don't forget to take notes. This has been a really important and great interview. And that's about it for this interview. Have a great day, Kourtney. And
you too.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Okay. Bye. Talk